Afternoon, Boomers. Brian Tong from boomerlife.net here today to talk about this keto diet. I've been on it now for 6 weeks and I haven't lost a whole lot of weight. So I did a more deep dive into the research. Decoding the keto diet. My cardiologist recommended it. It's all the rage. Quit eating carbs if you want to lose weight. It's become an obsession. It supposedly keeps celebrities like the Kardashians and Halle looking ripped. Avoid carbs, including fruit. Embrace fat. Lose weight without feeling hungry. Well, my question is no pasta, no rice, no bread, no pizza, no potatoes, no corn, no fruit, no carrots, no sweets, no desserts, no soda, no beer. How the heck can one live on meat, dairy, and green vegetables alone? Well, you can. And I got to admit, I'm not hungry all the time. But, when you're snacking on turkey breasts, it just doesn't seem to get it. So, where did all this come from? The diet's long history in science also lends it credibility. Doctors have been prescribing ketogenic diets to treat epilepsy and increasingly believe it holds promise for people with type 2 diabetes. But what's lost in many books and articles about going keto for weight loss today is that this diet is the same one that Dr. Atkins and other low carb evangelists have been selling since the 60s. Diet peddlers have an incredible knack for rebranding old ideas over and over, and in our eternal confusion about what to eat, we keep falling for it. Just like about every other diet under a long term study, the older keto regimens didn't work for most people hoping to slim down, and there's no evidence the newly popular keto diet will be any different. And here's why. Everyone cheats. So, how does it work? To understand the ketogenic diet, you need a quick primer on how the human body gets energy. We are fueled primarily by glucose or blood sugar, much of which we derive from carbohydrates in foods like bread, fruit, potatoes, and sweets. If glucose levels in the blood drop to really low levels, we pass out and die. But interestingly, the body can't store much glucose, only enough to last a couple days. So if we forego eating carbs for a few days, we need other ways to keep going. One of those is a process called ketogenesis. In ketogenesis, our liver starts to break down fat into a usable energy source called ketones. Organs like the brain that normally rely primarily on glucose for fuel can begin to use a substantial amount of ketones. According to Kevin Hall, a National Institute of Health senior investigator who has studied this diet, he says ketones can stand in for glucose as fuel for the body when there's a glucose shortage. It's an amazing psychological adaptation to starvation that allows tissues like the brain to survive. Once ketogenesis kicks in and ketone levels are elevated, the body's in a state called ketosis, during which it's burning stored fat. There are a few ways to get into ketosis. One is through fasting. When you stop eating altogether for an extended period of time, the body will ramp up fat burning for fuel and decrease its use of glucose, which is part of the reason why people can survive as long as 73 days without food. Remember Bobby Sands, the famous IRA prisoner who got himself elected to Parliament and then starved himself? It took him 73 days. I myself am a proponent of a good 4 to 6 day fast every so often to let the body heal itself without having to process food. Another way to get to ketosis is by eating less than 20 grams of carbs or a slice of bread per day. So people on a ketogenic diet get about 5% of their calories from carbohydrates, 15% from protein, and 80% from fat. Note that that's a much lower ratio of protein and a lot more fat than you'd get on other low-carb diets. It's this ratio that will force the body to derive much of its energy from ketones. If you eat too much protein or too many carbs, your body will be thrown out of ketosis. I think that's my problem. I'm eating too much protein. In practice, this means subsisting mainly on meat, eggs, cheese, fish, nuts, butter, oils, and vegetables, carefully avoiding sugar, bread, and other grains, beans, and even fruit. Again, if this sounds familiar, it's because it's not all that different from the Atkins diet, among the most famous very low carb diets that promise to get your body burning fat. Does it work? The evidence behind ketogenic diets for diabetes is still preliminary, and the evidence for weight loss isn't all that convincing. The evidence of using the diet to treat epilepsy is extremely good. The idea for treating people with epilepsy, it's easy for me to say, with the keto diet came in about the 20s when researchers observed that people who fasted experienced fewer seizures. Today, studies have shown that children and adults whose epilepsy doesn't respond to medication seems to experience a pretty large reduction in seizures when following a ketogenic diet. This doesn't, however, mean the diet works for other conditions. The keto concept has been catnip for many dieters, perhaps because of the failure of the low-fat experiment of the 80s and the 90s to help people lose weight, and the fact that food companies increasingly tell us to be suspicious of carbs and eat more protein. When you look at head-to-head studies comparing low-carb diets to other kind of diets, weight loss on a very low-carb diet can be a little more dramatic in the short term, but by the 1-year mark, all diets perform equally miserably. Everybody cheats. There was a randomized trial published in the Journal of American Medicine in 2007 involving 300 women and measured their weight loss on the Atkins diet compared to Zone, Learn, and Ornish diets. Researchers found that while women on Atkins shed a few more pounds, the weight loss on low-carb diets was likely to be at least as large as for any other dietary pattern when the magnitude of weight loss on Atkins was modest, with a mean 12-month weight loss of only 4 pounds. In other words, long-term weight loss on Atkins wasn't meaningful different from other diets. In the short term, low-carb diets like keto can sometimes help people lose more weight because they cause rapid water loss, which gives people the impression they've lost fat. This happens because low-carbohydrate diets deplete stored glycogen, and glycogen binds large amounts of water. Another reason very low-carb diets seem to help with weight loss is that there's some evidence they're effective for appetite control. Most people actually eat fewer calories than they would on most other diets. The evidence supporting this isn't great right now, but it seems to be where it's going. The long-term benefits seem to be harder to predict. The diet is hard to stick to. In our food environment, it's extremely difficult to avoid eating foods like bread, cookies, or pasta for months on end. The more extreme the diet, the harder it is to adhere to, and the ketogenic diet is extreme. But wait, you say, I've been on the ketogenic diet for 5 years and it's easy. That may be true, but randomized controlled trials don't lie. The average person can't stick with it for 6 months, as judged by urinary ketone levels. The minority of people who find it easy, get good results, and stick with it are the ones who write about it on the internet. Even people who adhere to a very low-carb diet in the short term don't necessarily reap the benefits proponents claim they will, like the increased calorie burn and fat loss. That's what the NIH's Kevin Hall found in another study he designed that's considered the most rigorous scientific test of ketogenic diets for weight loss. And I go into how all that worked. And there's other studies showing the same thing. It works for diabetes, but it doesn't really seem to work for losing weight. What has been shown is that the ketogenic diet controls blood glucose levels. That's a good thing. But to show true remission or reversal of diabetes, you have to show a person can go back to being able to eat carbs without having diabetes again, and that's never been proven with a ketogenic diet. Indeed, researchers have shown the opposite effect, that the body's ability to tolerate carbohydrates can decrease after following a low-carb, high-fat diet. Another common effect of the ketogenic diet is the keto flu, fatigue, lightheadedness, and dizziness people feel when they greatly reduce their carb intake. This effect should go away after the body adjusts to the diet, but staying on keto for a long time could lead to kidney stones, high cholesterol, constipation, slowed growth in young people, bone fractures. We actually don't know whether keto is safe in the long run. There's not a single historic traditionally living human population that was in chronic nutritional ketosis. Even in the Inuit, Indians, Alaskans, who mainly subsisted on fatty whales, seals, and fish, were not in ketonic chronic ketosis because they developed genetic mutations that prevented them from overproducing ketones. So if you have diabetes, it might be worth talking about the ketogenic diet with your doctor. But if you're going to keto to lose weight, buyer beware. It looks like a lot of other fad diets, especially if you're going to cheat. And if you can blow your 20 to 30 grams of carbs per day by eating one slice of toast and downing a few vitamin gummies as they're full of corn syrup. Be that as it may, I'm going to keep trying because what I was doing was certainly not working. I figure exercise more, eat less, and when you eat, cut way down on the carbs. That's my plan, and I refuse to consider surgical alternatives like the stomach squeezing sleeve. Not happening. And that's it for today, Boomers. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the flip. Brian Tong of Boomer Life out for now.